He was the dog nobody wanted, too old, too broken, too quiet. But the moment Daniel reached for his paw, something unimaginable happened. What looked like a simple act of kindness would uncover a heartbreaking secret and prove that even the most unloved soul can be a hero. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The shelter was filled with noise, barking, whining, the clatter of paws on metal floors. But in one corner, behind a rusted gate, sat a single German shepherd who made no sound. His fur was matted, his eyes dull and distant. While every other dog jumped and wagged their tails for attention, he simply stared at the floor, motionless, as if hope had long since left him. Volunteers whispered whenever they passed his cage. "That's the one no one touches," one murmured. "He's unpredictable. Bit someone once. Best to leave him be." Weeks turned into months. Families came and went. Puppies were adopted, yet his tag, marked Shadows, remained untouched. Until one cloudy afternoon, a man named Daniel walked in. He wasn't looking for a perfect dog. His eyes stopped on the quiet shepherd. While everyone else saw danger, Daniel saw sadness, and something else beneath it. A plea. He knelt down and softly said, "You've been waiting too long, haven't you?" And for the first time in months, Shadow lifted his eyes. The drive home was silent. Shadow sat in the back seat motionless, his eyes fixed on the window as rain streaked down the glass. When Daniel opened the car door, the dog didn't move until he gently whispered, "Come on, buddy. You're home now." Inside, Shadow wandered cautiously through the small house, sniffing corners, avoiding mirrors, flinching at every creak. When Daniel placed a bowl of food in front of him, Shadow just stared. He neither barked nor ate, only sat by the door as if waiting for someone who would never return. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He heard quiet pacing, the sound of claws clicking softly on the floor, then a low growl, directed not at him but at the empty hallway. It was as if Shadow was guarding something unseen. Daniel knelt beside him, his voice calm. "You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you." For a long moment, the dog didn't react, but then slowly his tail moved, once like a fragile spark of trust being born. Days turned into weeks, but Shadow's strange behavior only deepened the mystery. He rarely barked, never played, and seemed terrified of certain sounds. Whenever a siren wailed in the distance, he would bolt under the table, trembling violently until the noise faded. Daniel noticed he avoided men in uniforms, delivery drivers, officers, even construction workers. Something about them made him shrink back in fear. During walks, Shadow was calm until one afternoon. Without warning, he froze, ears high, muscles rigid. Then he tore from Daniel's grasp, sprinting down the street with a desperate intensity Daniel had never seen. Heart pounding, Daniel chased him through winding paths until Shadow stopped in front of an old abandoned house. The building was blackened by fire, windows shattered, walls scarred by smoke. Shadow whimpered and began scratching at the charred door, barking frantically. A nearby neighbor frowned. "That place? Been empty for years, ever since the fire." Daniel peered through the broken frame. Amid the ashes lay a half-burned toy, a small stuffed bear. Shadow lowered his head beside it and let out a deep, mournful sound. That's when Daniel felt it. This wasn't random fear. It was memory. The next morning, Daniel couldn't shake the image of that burned house from his mind, or the sound of Shadow's desperate cries. Something about it felt too personal, too painful to ignore, so he drove back to the shelter hoping for answers. When he mentioned the address, the staff exchanged uneasy looks. One older volunteer sighed softly. "That's where we found him," she said. "There was a fire. A family trapped inside. We think the boy didn't make it." Daniel's chest tightened. "And the dog?" "He was there, badly burned, refusing to leave the ruins. The firefighters had to drag him away." She rummaged through an old file and handed Daniel a photo, a half-melted collar tag, the name barely visible. Tob. Daniel's breath caught. "Toby," he whispered. He looked at the picture of the wounded dog, eyes full of loss. Shadow wasn't aggressive. He wasn't broken. He was grieving, mourning a boy he had tried to save. That night, Daniel sat quietly on the living room floor, the old shelter photo still in his hand. Shadow lay nearby, watching him with those deep, sorrowful eyes. Daniel hesitated, then pulled up an old news article on his phone. A picture of a young boy smiling beside a German shepherd. The headline read, "Family Tragedy. Fire Claims Young Life." He turned the screen toward Shadow. "Is this you?" he whispered. Shadow froze. His ears twitched, his body trembled. Then slowly he stepped closer. His nose brushed the screen and he let out a low, broken whine, a sound so full of pain it made Daniel's chest tighten. Daniel placed a hand gently on his fur. "You tried to save him, didn't you?" For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Shadow did something he'd never done before. He leaned forward and rested his head in Daniel's lap. No growls, no fear. Just quiet acceptance. In that fragile silence, two broken souls began to heal, together. Weeks passed, and Shadow was changing. He slept peacefully now, followed Daniel everywhere, and even wagged his tail when he saw children playing outside. Still, Daniel felt there was one thing left undone, one final step toward peace. So one afternoon he drove back to the charred remains of the old house. The air was quiet, heavy with memories. As they stood by the crumbling fence, Shadow suddenly stiffened. His nose twitched. Then he began pulling Daniel toward the nearby field, barking urgently. Daniel followed as Shadow dug at the ground with desperate energy. Within minutes, his paw struck something metallic. Daniel knelt, brushing away the dirt, revealing a small scorched tag. He wiped it clean, and his heart stopped. Engraved on it were the words, "Toby, my hero." Shadow. Toby whimpered softly and lay down beside it, pressing his head against the earth as if finally home. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. "You didn't fail," he whispered. "You saved his memory." For the first time since the day they met, Toby lifted his head, and his tail wagged slow and steady, the silent heartbeat of a soul finally at peace. Months later, the change in Toby was nothing short of miraculous. The haunted look in his eyes was gone and replaced by warmth, by life. He followed Daniel everywhere now, tail wagging, ears perked, always ready for the next adventure. Daniel began volunteering at the same shelter where Toby's story had begun. Every weekend he'd share their journey with visitors, hoping someone would see what he once saw, that behind every scar, every flinch, there's a story waiting for a second chance. Toby became the shelter's quiet hero. He'd sit by the kennels, greeting new adopters with gentle eyes, nudging shy dogs toward them as if saying, "Don't give up. Someone will love you too." One afternoon, a little boy knelt to pet him. Toby licked the child's hand and let out a soft sigh. Peaceful, content. Daniel smiled through tears. Sometimes saving a broken soul doesn't just heal them. It heals you too. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change two lives forever.